Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Mara Gittleman. I am the Workshops and Education Coordinator for NYC Parks GreenThumb. We are the part of the New York City Parks Department that works with community gardens across the city. And we are thrilled to be here with Anita Chan from Zero Waste at Earth Matter, New York, located on Governor's Island. So excited to hear more about that project and to hear more about how community gardens can plan and carry out zero waste events. As I know, most community gardens are trying to be, as green and environmentally friendly as possible. And so many of y'all are composting and doing really great work in that realm. So thank you, Anita, so much for being here. And I'm really excited also to be here with my colleague, Bill Pape, who will be collecting everyone's questions in the chat. So if you have any questions throughout Anita's presentation, go ahead and put them there. We will hold on to them until it's time for Q&A. We are recording today's workshop and we'll make it available on our website and YouTube, and I'll put links in the chat to those things so you can find the recording probably early next week. And we'll have the recording focused on just the speakers, but you can decide whether or not your camera is on using the little camcorder icon at the bottom of your screen. Thanks everyone so much for being here, and I pass the mic to Anita.
Thank you, Mara. Hi, everyone. I'm really happy to be here with you. I am going to start my presentation now. So, okay, welcome to Planning a Zero Waste Garden event, part 1. Thank you, Mara, for the introduction. So I'm the Zero Waste Island Coordinator and part of Earth Matter, one of the projects. So Earth Matter was started in 2009, and the mission is to seek to reduce the organic waste misdirected into the garbage stream by encouraging neighbor participation and leadership in composting. So we are really strong believers of not letting any organic waste actually be waste and going to landfill or incinerated. And very important thing to keep in mind is the closed loop cycle, how we can continuously use our resources in a circular fashion. So this is a really lovely graphic that shows how food is consumed by people, and we can feed it to animals such as chickens, and using their poop to incorporate into compost along with other organic material such as food scraps and yard waste, and then applying the soil right back to our plants. And after our plants grow, we can harvest it and make it into food again. So because I'm amongst many community gardeners, you're totally familiar with the cycle, whether or not you realize you're doing such amazing work. The other components of the Earth Matter is the New York City Compost Project. We are one of 7 sites that takes in a lot of food scraps from different sites throughout New York City to process on our space. Another one is our Soil Start Farm, where we apply compost to our land and grow various crops, which we give back to food bank, or we distribute to our staff and volunteers. And this is really to showcase the whole growing cycle. Recently, we have heritage beds, which showcase different plants from different heritage, representing the diversity in New York City. Lastly, we have our lavender field, which is a very beautiful space and just rows and rows of lavender. And this is to showcase best practices on how to grow different shrubs, and while you harvest the lavender, the rest of the plant you incorporate into compost as well. Okay. So the project that I coordinate is the Zero Waste Island Initiative, and that was started between earth matter and the trust for Governor's Island. So through this initiative, we implement many best practices to ensure that we are driving down the amount of waste that's sent off the island, which includes 4 streams. So organic waste, paper, cardboard recycling, plastics, metal, and glass recycling, and landfill. So all of the organic waste generated on the island, which includes landscaping material. So when trees are trimmed, grass is cut. We have this event called Pumpkin Point where all of the leftover pumpkins come to us. All the food vendor food scraps comes to us. Public recycling stations include a bin that's only for organics, island events, and oysters. They all come to us and we process it into large windrows as you see in this picture. And last year we collected over 110,000 pounds of organics. All of the recycling station bags come to us and we actually sort through it to ensure that there's no contamination. Although all of our vendors on the island do use compostable serviceware, people do bring their own food to picnic on the garden, so we do have contamination, full transparency, and that it's perfectly normal and something that we do have to address and helps us reevaluate how we can improve on driving down contamination rates. So here are some pictures of some day-to-day activities. As you can see, this on the left side, it's a lot of things that doesn't look like food. So what the green things are, those are bio bags, which is compostable bags. And then you see a lot of serviceware here ranging from plates to takeout boxes to cups, things that are in the pile but you can't see are utensils, and smaller things like portion cups. On the right side, a picture from one of the days we're doing sorting, and you see that we have a station set up. First, we weigh all of the organics, and then after we sort, we weigh the recycling, and then we weigh the trash to see what the contamination rate is. So from day to day, it is different. On days where we get a large influx of visitors, we may see a little more contamination rate, especially if they're not familiar with the Zero Waste Island initiative. On the bottom right is one of our vendors, and the sign is saying that all the serviceware from the vendors are compostable. So that's kind of public education to ensure that everything that is compostable goes into the right bin so we don't lose it to landfill. So I've been kind of talking about like zero waste initiative and that phrase. Maybe some of you have heard it before, maybe not. Seems a little self-explanatory on the surface. So zero obviously means none, waste, anything that we don't want. But I wanted to present you the definition created by the Zero Waste International Alliance. So the conservation of all resources by means of responsible production, consumption, reuse, and recovery of products, packaging, and materials without burning and with no discharges to land, water, or air that threaten the environment or human health. So it is a lot that goes into creating a zero waste ecosystem, and we have to keep in mind that it's not only what consumers take part in, but also from the source. So it's like kind of before it gets to you, what happens when you have it, how are you dealing with it, and also what happens when you're done using things. This is a zero waste hierarchy. So I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with some sort of infograph picturing triangles, and very often it's just reduce, reuse, and recycle. There are actually many more layers to it when we want to design a zero waste system. So the very top, you have rethink and redesign. So that is really trying to cut out any um, waste in the first place, even before anything is created. So that is a very important first step. Therefore, it's the first and the biggest. The second one is to reduce. So even if the products are made, if you yourself as a consumer can reduce the amount that you're using, that is still a great step. After that is reuse. You want to make sure that you extend the life of any products that you're using, if possible, so that it's kept in the loop for longer and not sent to landfill or other um, places. Recycling is next. So some of you might know recycling infrastructure isn't the best. A lot of items that are technically recyclable are still lost. So we don't prioritize recycling first. So composting is actually a way of recycling too. It's like nature's way of recycling nutrients, and that's why it's so important. Um, the next step is material recovery. So making sure that, making sure that we use materials that are still usable, maybe not in this original form, but in another form. Residual management is using biological treatment and stabilized landfilling. Most of us are not familiar and also wouldn't ever see that. And lastly, the incineration and wasted energy is absolutely unacceptable. So the lower you go, the more resources is lost. So and kind of used in a unsustainable manner. So we really want to linger on the top as much as possible to go towards zero waste in our lifestyles and also like in our communities. So you can see this on the Zero Waste International Alliance website if you want to review it later. Um, okay, so now we're gonna go into events. So I want to pose these questions to you all. What type of events take place in a garden? What kind of garden events have you hosted in your gardens? And what kind of garden events have you attended? Please write in the chat, and Bill or Mara can share with the rest of us what kind of responses we're getting. I'm sure in the past year, nothing has happened. But before that, I know there's been a lot of amazing things happening in all of your community gardens.
Great. So we're seeing a bunch of responses. Someone says that we have hosted community garden work days, as well as harvesting and tincturing classes in the garden education events, beekeeping, for example. We're planting perennial pollinator plants, compost worm farm, barbecues, scavenger hunts to find species of trees and plants. I love that. Composting tours, turnings, and giveaways.
Oh, that sounds so exciting. Yeah, so many different type of garden events, like ranging from like very volunteer based or activity based, and some are revolving around food, such as the barbecues. Um, and depending on what event you have, you would want to um, think about how many people would fit in your space comfortably, and whether or not to have food. So For volunteer events, you'll probably have lighter snacks and maybe water and drinks. Whereas for barbecue, you would have more expensive menu of foods, and therefore you would probably need more serviceware and utensils to go along with that food. Okay, so um, to kind of start off, consider your event attendees. How many people will be attending? So that will depend on whether you have a large gathering space in your garden. Can you move things around? If not, can you possibly have part of it on the sidewalk? Maybe have people kind of pass by instead of stay for hours. Um, and Secondly, are they familiar with zero waste concepts? So depending on who you're interacting with, it makes a huge difference on how much you need to say um, and how much signage you would need. So if folks are pretty new, like you just started your garden a month ago, and you have many uh, gardeners from various walks of life who may not be familiar with, hey, you can compost this. Or this is something that is really bad for environment, you would need to put up some signage. And what's even better than signage is kind of direct communication. So when you're making the invitation, whether it's a email or Eventbrite event, you should mention that you are trying to have a zero waste event, and a brief description on what that means, and how the event attendees can participate. We definitely love to encourage people to join us rather than dictate that they have to do this or they have to do that. And during your event, make sure to reintroduce your goals with the attendees. As time passes by, it may be easy to forget, hey, like, what the zero waste management component is to the events. And I'm sure people are coming for your events activities, or the people going much more than how they're going to manage the waste at the events. So it is important to reintroduce your goals. And in addition to that, do a little walkthrough of, uh, of what your zero waste vision is. So this is all like a reiterative process. You can't just go through it once and then just forget about it. You do have to tweak it from time to time, depending on what kind of feedback you're getting. Okay, so next is the food and drink. So you know how many people are coming and kind of like what kind of food or drink preferences they have. Then you can sort of you can write down a menu, or you can, however you want to do that. So do you want to have hot drinks? Do you want to have cold drinks? Cold drinks, you need to make sure that you have a cooler and ice. For hot drinks, what time of the year is it? Will it get cold really quickly? And the second question is to ask, is that item absolutely necessary? And are there any substitutes? So for example, ketchup packets. All ketchup packets that we currently have come in a little plastic pack, and that's not recyclable, and very often people don't even use it when it's handed to them when they buy from the store. So something like that, if you want ketchup for your hot dogs and burgers at a barbecue, you can get bulk size so that people can just apply it to their own food and skip the ketchup packets. Next step, maybe you can use paper portion cups if it's absolutely necessary, but that's still using an additional thing that's not absolutely necessary. In terms of like COVID precautions, maybe you can have dedicated volunteers who are washing their hands, wearing gloves to distribute these items, so that you wouldn't have to worry about too many hands touching the ketchup bottle. So with most events, there's always an abundance of food and drink, and if you're unprepared, you might have to scramble to put two plates together to carry it home. That might spill. So it'll be really awesome to get ahead of the game and to just have some containers, bring some containers. I know for myself, I definitely have abundance of containers at home collected over the years, and I would just bring some of those to the event. And if there's any leftovers, you can easily pack it for participants to take home. Um, for that point, kind of two big points. So one point is to not waste food. Food waste is a huge issue, and it's really unfortunate because it contributes to the amount of waste that we have, but also uh, it it's really a waste of all the resources put in to grow the food, to distribute the food, and then make the food if it's a prepared dish. And also, the second point is it's a lot of extra waste for you to deal with at the end of your event if you do have a lot of leftovers that other people aren't taking home to eat. So if people are taking home a lot of food, it's less stuff for you to manage at the end. But throughout the event, you have to make sure that you have a place for people to dispose of any items that they have. So do you already have a waste station in your garden? Usually, yes, because you have uh, like if you're putting down weeds and you don't want to add it to your compost pile, you may put it in trash. And if you have folks coming in and they're drinking from bottled water or something, you will want a recycling bag. But do you have a station set up with um, three streams or even four? So it would be one for compostable items, one for the blue bin, which is glass, metal, um, plastic, green bin for your cardboard and paper, and then the black bin for anything that has to go to landfill. So having a station set up like this makes it easier for you so that you don't have to scramble to get a bag when people come up with ways and say, hey, where can I put this? But also gives you an opportunity to put signage. If you want to put something up like the picture on the bottom left, this is our Earth Matter sign saying, let's sort it out. It's something big, it's catchy, generally understood what it means to like sort something out, kind of to, yeah, like to kind of, you have to give more attention to it. And then we have three bins here. We usually don't have a green bin because we don't get much paper and cardboard. And um, if it's a small piece, we can just put it in our organics bin and compost it later. But yeah, something like this at an event, it can be smaller depending on the size of your garden. Um, and you have to consider where and how you can set it up to optimize efficiency. So if it's tucked away all the way in the back of the garden, away from where the event is, then it's not really useful. Maybe you have to bring it out closer to where the event is taking place. But also, you might not want to put it too close to where people are sitting and eating, in case that is a hot summer day and the garbage smells. So you have to consider the space. Usually near the entrance or exit is pretty optimal because people have to pass by coming in or going out. So that is a pretty good space to consider. Next thing is, do you have on-site composting? I know that a lot of GreenThumb gardens, they do have composting there, whether it's one bin or three bin, maybe tumblers. But the size of the compost bin does make a difference, especially if you do take in a lot of organic waste from your community already. Will you have space to fit, say, service square from like 20 event attendees? So that's something to think about beforehand. Um, and how hot does your compost get? So the hotter, the better for those who uh, have tried composting serviceware before, so reaching thermophilic temperatures would get those serviceware breaking down sooner. But if not, it's not like you can't do it at all, but do note that it wouldn't break down that quickly. And lastly, if you don't have compost in your garden, what can you do with the materials? I would say try your best not to trash it because any compostable materials that goes to landfill, they wouldn't break down like they would in your compost. And it's kind of a waste anyways. And due to the like non-ideal conditions, they may release a lot of methane gas, which is counterproductive of you trying to use better products in the first place. Um, so definitely try to bring it to a food scrap drop off. So FSDO, maybe you're familiar with it. So there are many food scrap drop off sites throughout New York City, hosted by different partners, and we do have a list on our website. Um, you can go to earthmatter.org/nyc-compost-project, and we have a list. Another great place to just look for it. I'm sure New York City Parks, GreenThumb can provide that resource as well, Grow NYC. So we have abundance of amazing organizations working together to help you compost. But before you bring it to any of these places, make sure to check in with them what they accept, because not all composting sites have the same capacity. So make sure you check in with them what you're bringing first before you bring it. Okay. So now we're gonna go to the products. So what to choose? So there are so many products out there. Do a quick internet search of forks, and you'll get so many different products. And how do you know what would work for your event and for your garden and for the environment? Um, so this is where it gets kind of tricky. So first, I want everyone to think of like, what materials are out there for these utensils and plates. So if we want to go reusable, we have our metal, our china dishes, um, and hard plastics. We have that. But if it's a event where you're going for single use because you don't have the capacity to wash it, then for these items you can have uh, bamboo spoons, utensils. You can have wooden utensils, and they're also plant-based. So I don't have it pictured right here, and I'll explain why in a moment. So there is this material called polylactic acid that makes serviceware. So you have these clear cups, these plastic looking utensils, and they're made out of plants, but they're able to be formed in a way that kind of resemble plastic, and it has the same kind of a utility as a plastic. But for those, you do need higher temperatures. So generally for gardens, we're going to stay away from those. And those products, they're not accepted in most of the drop-off sites. So I encourage you all to look into bamboo or wooden utensils that's pictured below. So this and the cup, they're sold by Vegware. Um, and for these, they're quite rigid. They work just fine. Don't have to worry about them breaking or splintering in your mouth. Um, so I want to go over the terms of like bio-based versus biodegradable versus compostable. So bio-based it is used very loosely, and it pretty much means that as long as there's a component that's plant-based, then they can label as bio-based. So that's not what we're looking for. Biodegradable. What that means is it would break down in the environment um, after being there for a duration of time. Still very vague, not what we're looking for. What we're looking for is compostable. So that means that it can break down in commercial size compost facility within 12 weeks. So even with products that are labeled compostable, you may have a greenwash product there. So what greenwashed is companies talking about their product as if it's actually eco-friendly and sustainable, but it's not. They're just claiming that. So that is why it's important for us to look for certified compostable products. Right now in the United States, we have the Biodegradable Products Institute, which is a third-party organization that tests all products that are sent to them, and they make sure that they are certified compostable. And so that is something that we look for to ensure that it is a product that we can trust. And they're very accommodating with working with you. You can submit questions because sometimes you may look on a product website and it says, "Hey, I'm BPI certified," but there's no proof. So you may have to check on both sides. Um, Lastly, there's something that's called PFAS. Maybe some of you have come across that before, and it is a dangerous substance that is um, used in some serviceware and other products. And the reason why it's used because it makes things like paper products resistant to oil and water. Um, and it's a very dangerous thing because it will accumulate in the environment and in our bodies, and it may cause harmful health effects. And this is something that the compostable serviceware industry is very well aware of, and BPI, they definitely do not uh, condone using this PFAS, and that's something that is important for us to be aware of too, because not only is it harmful to our bodies, but you wouldn't want to put that in your compost as well. So you have to be careful with that. So over here, there's a plate, cup, and the utensils, which are probably the staples that you will use for any garden event. So this cup right here, I want to point out that it's a hot cup, and uh, some people are a little afraid, like, oh, it's a paper cup. What if you pour some boiling hot coffee in it? Would it just disintegrate and fall onto my lap or something? So this product, it is actually lined with PLA. So it would break down in your compost as well. And there are other products out there that may be lined with petroleum-based plastics. So this is a little tricky for us at Earth Matter. We only accept serviceware that we have vetted through BPI, and otherwise, if there's some random product that doesn't have any brand or any recognizable features that we can do research on, we have to landfill it because we do not want to contaminate our compost pile. So I know that was a lot of information about like different things to pay attention to when you're selecting the products, when you're planning out what items to serve and how to serve it. So I will now open it up to any questions.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I've got a couple of questions that I've been compiling. So we'll start. Let's see. At the top. Well, one question that was asked was answered in the chat, but it's worth asking. What about COVID-19 rules at your site? Are masks still required?
Um, So for folks who do not know where Governor's Island is, it's kind of between Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Staten Island. And the only way to get to it is by ferry. So on the ferry, masks are mandated, and on the island, masks are still mandated now. Um, uh, and I don't know um, what uh, what the situation is, like if they have determined that for the rest of seasons like that. So that I'm not too sure. So we'll just stay tuned on that. And for us at Earth Matter, we are still wearing masks. So for any of our volunteers, any visitors, you are required to wear a mask. But if you are picnicking on the lawn with your family or friends in a group and you're away from any other people, you can technically take off your mask because you are outdoors. But definitely on the ferry and when you're nearby anyone, you have to keep your mask on. And we have wash stations all over the island. Within Earth Matter, we have hand washing stations as well. So you can definitely use soap and water to clean your hands before interacting with any activities. And we provide uh, gloves that are longer. So that's what we have been doing and probably will continue because doesn't hurt to be a little on the safe side.
Great, thank you. Another question here, and Mara posted in the chat. You've got some folks that might be interested in volunteering. I assume that you have opportunities on your website, correct?
Yep. Yeah.
Yep.
So if you want to go directly to signing up for any shifts, you would go to earthmatter.org/calendar. Um, it's kind of a calendar so you can see like, oh, which day of the week you want to join. And we do have volunteer opportunities on Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, and Mondays. So depending on your personal schedule, we should probably have at least one shift that would work. An upcoming bigger event that I wanted to highlight is the Jazz Age Lawn Party. It's a really lovely event that has been held for several years now, except for last year. Um, and what we do there is we set up the stations to manage the waste. So volunteering with us, you get to interact with all the Jazz Age Lawn Party attendees and help us monitor the stations and make sure that things are being recycled properly. And then you get to join the party when you're not on the shift. So it's really fun. Definitely have a lot of like great feedback on that. And also for each of our project areas, there are volunteer opportunities. So definitely check it out.
Great. Let's see. When you brought up the issue of cutlery, a couple of questions came up. How much compostable cutlery? Sorry about this. Does Earth Matter process, and how long does it take to break down? What are the limitations you recommend for garden scale composting? And what about whether or not a garden accepts compostable bags?
Okay, several questions there. So
Yeah.
first up, the amount that we process. So far, last year was definitely much smaller, but so far this year, every weekend we've gotten around like 500 pounds of organics that we sort through. Exactly how many utensils, because they're kind of relatively light, so I can't really say how many pounds, but a fair amount because considering like every meal that's consumed on the island probably came with either a fork or spoon, so a good amount. And for us, we do have a lot of PLA utensils, but also like bamboo utensils as well. I encourage for gardeners to use the bamboo or wooden ones because they kind of serve as the grounds of your compost, right? Kind of like a wood chip in a sense. And to generally for anything, if you wanted to break down a little sooner, just make it slightly smaller, right? So for any utensils, you can probably just snap it in half and throw it in, and um, and then just tend to your compost pile like you normally would. And for the compostable bags, this one's a little tricky. I have seen, like, some gardeners, they would just throw it in anyways to kind of experiment themselves how long it takes to break down. Um, I think it really depends on how you manage your pile. If you're able to get your pile to go above like 160 degrees, even if it's like a rather small pile, like a 1 cubic yard, yeah, you can eventually break it down, but a lot of gardeners also just don't want to have something that's just forever lingering in their pile for like a whole year or more. Then they wouldn't want to put it in. Um, and this is something that I heard recently, which totally valid. It doesn't look good, it kind of looks like a trash bag hanging out for your compost. So it's really up to the gardener. I personally think that if it's a certified um, compostable bag, then you can incorporate it. But just know that if you have a smaller pile, lower temperatures, like it wouldn't break down that quickly. So by the end, if you have finished compost, maybe you still see some of the bag left behind. Um, Please repeat a question if I missed one.
Sure, sure. So there's lots to learn about composting. So there's been questions posted about if where do you go to learn about composting?
Hmm,
Take
okay.
classes.
Um, so there is there's a lot of like workshops and um informal learning opportunities. So GreenThumb offers a lot of workshops, so I was send them over. But also, like, if you come to volunteer with us and we're working on a pile, like we do kind of like in an informal setting teach about the different components of composting. Um, there is also the Master Composters program, which I don't think it's happening. I'm not too sure when it's resuming. So that is hosted by the New York City Compost Project. So maybe check their website. I'm not too sure when it's the next cohort will be. And yeah, the I'm gonna throw in the GreenThumb Compost Apprenticeship Program. Currently, Earth Matter hosts 10 apprentices from GreenThumb, and they are diving really deep into composting. So many different ways to learn about composting. A lot of online resources as well. Um, but yeah, definitely check your local green organizations such as Green Thumb, Big Reuse, Earth Matter, Queen's Botanical Garden.
Well, and also to toot Green Thumb, Mara posted actually on our website. We have a great deal of information about many things, but especially a growing food toolkit with a lot of information about composting.
Mhm.
Let's see, going down the list. Do you know of any buildings who compost on their rooftop? I was given permission to put garden beds on my roof, but would love insight if buildings have composted on their roofs or if you have any relationships with picking up food from larger buildings.
That sounds so exciting. So the what popped into my head right away is Brooklyn Grange. They're a rooftop farming, and I know that they compost there as well. I don't. There's like Javits Center who also have a rooftop farm, but I'm not too sure if they compost there yet. I haven't had the opportunity to tour yet. But yeah, I don't think it's that widely practiced yet, composting on rooftops, but that's super cool. Um, experience from collecting large amounts of food scraps. Um, so I think that uh, for most of the food scrap drop-off sites, it is on a smaller scale. I would say places like the Union Square Market and Grand Army Plaza, they get pretty large amounts, and they do have to rent trucks to load up and then bring it to whichever site um, to get it composted. And normally you would use like larger like toters that have wheels, and also make sure that the lid is can fully close. It's best if you can lock it, but kind of like thicker, sturdier material to first of all like hold material and not break when you're trying to move it, but also to prevent rodents from getting in. And um, I guess if say anybody who wants to start a collection, definitely have to start small, because there are a lot of like different factors that you may not expect. So if you kind of like try to like jump ahead and say, "Hey, whole like all of Brooklyn, bring your food scraps to me," then it may kind of have like different complications. Like, oh, if you're setting up for collection during this time, if someone comes after that time and they drop off like 10 pounds of food scraps, and you don't get around to the site to pick it up until a few days later, that might attract rodents or complaints from neighbors, things like that, and also contamination. Um, Even though we have a lot of people who are very passionate about either like composting themselves or at least donating food scraps, there's still like a lot of things that people think can be composted but are not able to be composted. One example would be like diapers. People think they can dump a whole diaper in the organics bin. That is a no. Um, yeah, so definitely kind of take all of that into account, and yeah, like reach out to different partners. So for Union Square Market, it'll be Grow NYC. Maybe you can stop by and chat with some of the coordinators there, and you see how they run. For Earth Matter, we collect. We have a food scrap drop-off site at Bowling Green on Tuesday mornings, um, and we get a few um, to, we use these bins. That's the black bottom, yellow lid. Maybe some of you used it. So we get a few of those every Tuesday morning. So it's not really a huge volume. The larger volumes that we get is on Monday mornings, where Grow NYC brings a lot of material, usually 3 truckfuls of material in which we process. So that is quite a sight to see. So if anyone wants to come volunteer on a Monday, you'll be participating in that huge compost build.
Nice, nice. There was a question raised about e-waste, which we did answer. We know that you don't accept e-waste. For that, we recommend going to 311. And I'll sort of make a mention that I live in a building with about 100 apartments. We were able to connect up, and we have on site a large metal bin. And so that is one way to handle e-waste, but that depends, of course, on if you live in a large apartment building. Now, let's see, let's continue on down our list. Mara's confirming that unfortunately the master composting program is suspended, and she relisted the link for you.
Yes. Thank you so much, Bill, and thank you so much, Anita. I do think we've reached the end of our questions.
Oh, no.
And so I just wanted to say thank you so much to Anita for your presentation today. This was really fabulous. So much information. Earth Matter is doing such exciting work, and we're really grateful to have you as partners. For folks who are in New York, if you've been to our GreenThumb Grow Together conference, or I think Harvest Fair, so a lot of our events, we partner with Earth Matter to make them as zero waste as we can. And so we appreciate this partnership so much. And thank you everyone for coming and for being here today.
Thank you so much for organizing this.